Welcome to the Lair of Secrets podcast, the podcast about gaming and being a geek by two 40-something geek dads. I am David Moore, woodworker and a guy with too many hobbies that I like to pursue.
And I'm Ken Newquist, an IT guy who never seems to have enough time to read comic books, but refuses to stop collecting comic books. So David, what have you been up to the last week?
Well, last time we got together, I was working my way through Color of Magic, and I finally was able to finish it. Took a little bit of work. It's not the best book in the Discworld series, being the first, but it was still enjoyable. It had a very abrupt ending, and the best way that I can describe it is it's a series of vignettes or short stories that are kind of strung through and put together like a necklace sort of thing, and then it just kind of ends with the main character. I won't give away the ending, even though it's probably over 20 years. It's over 20 years old, but it ends on, you could kind of call it a cliffhanger, but it's not really a cliffhanger. It's a good book. It's readable. It's enjoyable. It's not one of those books that I would pick up and read again. There are some books in the Discworld series that I would pick up and read again, but I would read it. I'm glad to read it the first time.
I don't think this is a major spoiler, but I do. First of all, my opinion of the book is very much the same as yours. I'm kind of glad I read it. It's kind of one of those things that if you like Terry Pratchett, I imagine that you would want to go and read it at some point. I think my favorite part of the whole book, though, is the whole expedition to figure out the sex of the turtle that the elephants stand on that holds up Discworld, right?
Yep.
Which I think is just like endlessly amusing when I'm reading it, right? Like, because of course, that's what kind of like humans do, right? Oh yeah, we're part of a Discworld, and there's elephants that are on top of the back of a giant turtle. This is known.
Right.
So clearly a major philosophical question that must be answered is, what is the sex of the turtle?
Right. And I mean, he even in the book, he even does describe that, what if there's another giant celestial turtle and they come, are they going to mate? Are they going to fight? What's going to happen? We have to know the sex of this turtle.
It is it's a serious issue when you live on a giant disc.
Yep.
So yeah, again, it was amusing, but just like you said, like it can be a bit of a slug to get through.
Yes. I did start another book called Forging Hephaestus by Drew Hayes. It is the Villain's Code Book 1. It's like a supervillain story. The main character, at the beginning of the book, she's basically breaking into this scientific facility and gets caught, and turns out that the scientific facility is owned by a guild of villains. She's basically starting to train with them. There's a heroic guild, of course, in the same city. It's fun. It's interesting. It's been very long. I think it could use a little bit more editing. Fairly interesting story. I used to play Champions Online a ton. There are significant portions of the book that sound like that they came out of a Champions Online or City of Heroes set of role-playing sessions in a guild in one of those games. I'm not saying that that's bad. It won't be for everybody.
I can understand that.
Yeah. It's got an interesting piece of world building. It's like every universe setting that has supers in it has like an origin story for different supers and why supers are there. There is a particular cape, as they call them, a superhero, who did an experiment. After that experiment, not only was he a superhero, other superheroes and supervillains started happening in these things called confluences. They'll be able to detect a confluence is coming, but they won't necessarily be able to tell when exactly. They can't predict when the next one after that is coming. They only can read the signs that one's going to come. And so, of course, one happens, and so some more supervillain people are created at that point. Hopefully you guys don't hear my robot vacuum in the other room, but it may knock on my door.
Oh no, the robots are coming.
Yeah, it may knock on my door politely a few times. The next one that I have up on deck, though, A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martin. I picked that one up because that one won the Hugo for best novel this year. Yeah, you're probably hearing my dog too now. Sorry.
Well, he likes to join the podcast periodically.
Yeah, robot vacuums, dogs. You know what? Let me skip ahead. Puppy Zoe is doing quite well.
Oh, that's good.
Contrary to what's going on right now, however, Zeke has actually calmed down in his barking. He does not bark at everything all the time anymore, which is what we were hoping Zoe would do for him. She's doing pretty well. Came mostly potty trained, so that is a big boon.
Yes, that is tremendous help.
Yeah.
Tremendous help.
Yes. I've torn down pretty much everything in the garage wood shop so that I can rearrange it and make some improvements. We're going to put some insulation in and some drywall up so that in the summer, when it's, 80 degrees out, it's not 120 degrees in the garage. And in the winter, it's not super freezing, so I can actually work in there in the winter. Or at least that's the plan. But right now it's a giant mess. Last but not least is gaming. Finally was able to get a partial game together. Only about half of us were able to get together, but we did get together, started the D&D game again, planned a little bit. We're basically on a delivery mission, but it's a 2-stage delivery mission, and we don't know where one of the stages is. We only know the general region where this shrine is that we have to go pick something up at. There was some discussion about how we wanted to do that. Short, but at least there was something. Theoretically, we'll be getting together next weekend. 2 other things, which was I did play a game of Godsend Agenda, which is another supers kind of game. It's basically aliens are real, prison ship of aliens crash landed down on Earth thousands and thousands of years ago, and they are the reason why civilization advanced the way it did, and they are the gods in civilization. There was a Ra, there was a Zeus, that sort of thing. The Godsend Agenda is this social engineering way of these aliens coming to a planet and taking it over. Some of the world knows about it, some of the world doesn't. They know that there are supers, and so we played a good game with that. This is I think the 3rd edition that's being worked on right now. It's in beta. Jerry Grayson ran the adventure. He's one of the designers. It's Compare Publishing. And now my dog is outside. Sorry. Okay.
He's just got to make sure the neighborhood's okay, right?
Yeah. It'll be released on Cowboy Dracula, but we also played with 2 of the people from the YouTube show Babies with Knives. So that's their their logo is pretty funny. It is a baby with a pacifier, like flying with a cape with a knife in one hand.
That's fantastic.
It's a pretty fantastic logo, and they were a lot of fun to play with. But it reminded me that D&D and Pathfinder are slow when it comes to combats. We ended up playing 2 or 3 different combats in a 4-hour session, and had a lot of role playing and a lot of investigation just because of the way that the system works.
Right.
The system from the get-go, there's no real levels. It's more of a skill-based sort of system. But from the get-go, you can do multiple attacks per round or not. You can choose multiple actions or not multiple actions. Basically, it's just a die penalty every action after your first. So sometimes you take a lot, sometimes you only take 1. And that's just fine. And it was a lot of fun.
That sounds cool. I vaguely remember Godsend Agenda from back in like our original podcasting heydays. Is like one of those games that people were talking about, but I never actually got a chance to play.
Got it.
So I'm glad you had that like nice little setup. Cause like I know this. I saw the show notes. I'm like, I know this game. I know this game, but I couldn't remember exactly what it was about. So
yep,
that's very cool.
How about you? What'd you do this last week?
So I finally broke down and bought a new day pack. So I have this pack that my wife used to work for a outdoors magazine, and she as part of this got to test a lot of gear. And so we have this ancient pack that just it looks gross. Every time I'm about to go out for something with scouts, or if I'm going to a convention, I take out this pack. My wife looks at it and goes, wait a minute, that thing's still here, and you're taking that. and wait, it hasn't fallen apart yet, right? So the time had come really to find a better day pack for a variety of different activities. And so what I mean by day pack, it needs to be something that you can take on like shorter hikes. So if you're going for like a day hike of like 5, 10, maybe 15 miles, you would take this. So it's enough to carry food and water. It's got like one of those camelback type things where you can carry like, I think up to 2 liters of water or some such. I've never actually gotten one of those. It may be a new add-on that I need to pick up. But also maybe like lightweight overnight summer camping, right? So, if you know that you're going to be staying in a lean-to and you're not bringing a sleeping bag, you're just bringing like some light cover, that kind of thing. And you only need one change of clothes. This is that kind of pack. And also like just kind of day trips. So both the scouts and with our family, you're going away for the weekend. You just need to throw a bunch of stuff in a bag. And you need to not be embarrassed by the bag that you're carrying. So
right.
The last possible use case is game conventions. I haven't had a good pack for game conventions in a really long time. I don't know that this will actually be appropriate for a game convention. That's really very much a tertiary sort of use case here. But, I'm also not trying to do what I used to do at Gen Con, which is like carry every freaking hardcover for every game that I'm playing all around Gen Con. That's just crazy. And maybe you do it when you're in your 20s or maybe even in your 30s, but eventually you should wise up and not carry that much weight because it just kills your back.
The only reason why I had succeeded in doing that at all was when I packed my schedule so that it was like game, transfer between game, so that maybe the pack would be on my back for 15 minutes and then it was sitting on the floor for 4 hours.
Right.
My other modus operandi now is go to the con with an empty backpack or nearly empty backpack, and then go to the Great Hall, and then go back to the car or the hotel room once it's full, and then drop everything off.
And if you can get it, if you can get one of the hotels at Gen Con or whatever convention you're going to, where the hotel is close to the center of the convention, and you can just kind of like pop into the room periodically. But like the first time I went to Gen Con in Indianapolis, it had been after being at Milwaukee, and in Milwaukee you could get away with this. You could pop back to the room really easy. Indy, it was like 3 miles. To get from one end over to the other, like to get to Exhibition Hall over to the football stadium, right, is substantial distance.
It is. The football stadium to the main convention hall is a pretty big walk. We used to stay at the Embassy Suites downtown, and that's a good 15-20 minute walk from the convention center, but that's not bad if you're doing it a couple of times. We also had the added benefit of that years ago, the indie game crew would also be at the Embassy Suites along with a bunch of podcasters. So the evenings we would just hang out there.
Right. So I have found the pack that I purchased. It's hopefully on its way from REI, which is a outdoor store. I don't know how familiar everybody is with them. I think they're national. I certainly went to one in Denver at one point, but
they're definitely in Chicagoland area.
So anyway, I bought the Osprey Stratos 24 pack. This is a 24 liter pack. And so I got to say, this is a perfect example of like, I'm just a big nerd and I don't actually know anything about backpacking until I actually had to learn about backpacking. So I have no 24 liters. How much is that? Right. Like I can measure it in Mountain Dew.
That's
right?
a lot.
But how much is it to actually carry in a pack? Right. And so by way of comparison, my big pack, the one that I'll take when we go, backpacking for 12 days and hike 60 miles in Philmont, New Mexico, that is an 85 liter pack.
Oh,
and
my.
So so 24 is actually very small. Comparatively speaking, my 85 liter pack, I can fit just so much stuff in it. And when you see all the gear that you have to take on this 12-day trip, you're like, oh my God, I don't even know how I'm going to fit it in the 85 liter pack. So anyway, it's a 25 liter pack. It's got lots of zippers and pockets, which is what I was shooting for. So, it's not kind of like your standard, like you got an LL Bean backpack where there's lots of compartments and you've got, like a laptop sleeve. It's not that kind of pack.
Right.
But it does have enough external compartments that I would be able to like easily get to a map or easily get to some like a snack mix or easily, get out a headlamp or something. Right. Because part of the challenge that I have with some of the leaner day packs is that like you don't want to always have to unsling the pack and open the thing up and like
Right.
try and get stuff out.
Right.
And so it was important to have just enough compartments and pockets to be able to better manage that, especially if you're, we went to Washington, D.C. for a long weekend with my son's troop. And with that, it was just basically walking around D.C. I think we walked like 12 miles in one day, right?
That's easy to do in D.C.
Easy to do in D.C. And so you really just needed to be you're constantly unslinging and slinging your backpack. And so this has better back support, better lumbar support. It's got like the little arms that come around the side so you can rest it on your hips.
Yeah.
But it has enough stuff that and this is actually important, an integrated rain cover. So you can just pop out the rain cover and keep the pack dry, which is important when you're day hiking and all of a sudden there's a storm that you were not expecting.
Yes.
So I can't wait to get it. My wife can't wait for me to get it so we can get rid of this other pack. And then I think I'll just, maybe I'll take it for some of my morning walks, just like throw some D&D books in the back and just so that I have some weight and get a feel for how it feels.
Cool.
So that's the big thing. I'm very excited.
I got two things for you. One is, have you heard of, I think they're called storage cubes, but they're basically for packing. They're basically very, very thin but durable material with a zipper, and they're kind of like stuff sacks. Right. And when I was doing, up until recently, doing a lot more traveling for business, I had discovered them about 9 months or so ago, and I've only gotten to use them once, but I really liked them. That mixed with your pack would be probably pretty handy if you have any trouble at all fitting stuff into a pack that size. The other, though, is I have always had a problem with getting rid of backpacks because they still work. I mean, they look awful, but they still work. Why am I throwing this away? Do you have that problem as well?
Yes, I totally have that problem.
Okay.
I have this red LL Bean pack that was my work backpack for a long time that I would use to carry my laptop to and from. And aside from the fact that was a terrible idea and it really just kind of like created all of this stress and tension in my shoulders, there's an actual hole in the bottom because I put way too much stuff in this. And this was also my convention backpack and what have you. But like I have this nostalgic, it's a really nice pack, but it's broken. Like it doesn't even have like it's still functional. It is actually broken. I just need to get rid of it.
Although it's LL Bean, you might be able to talk. You might be able to write them and say, "Hey, can you repair this backpack for me?" Or
you can actually. What they'll do is they'll exchange it because there's like a lifetime guarantee on their things. And so I had actually considered that, and so that is one reason
that you haven't gotten rid of it yet.
That I haven't gotten rid of it is I keep waiting for LL Bean's like style to come back around to something that I like.
Okay.
I had actually, because of just kind of the strain of the backpack and also honestly looking for something more professional than showing up with a red backpack when you're going to meetings with like vice presidents and what have you. Right. Even though I'm being very eco-conscious by walking to work and I have a good excuse for having a backpack, still, to sling your red backpack down in the middle of a meeting isn't always the most professional looking thing. So I actually have a Timbuktu messenger bag, which has been fantastic. I use it when I bike to work and when I walk to work, and it's pretty waterproof. I got caught in a pretty impressive deluge about a year ago, not long after I got it, and it kept everything mostly dry. I mean, with the quantity of rain, this is one of those kind of storms where it was like 2 or 3 inches of rain in an hour, and I got caught halfway to work.
Yeah, that's like flash flood sort of danger in some areas.
Yes. So yeah, the Timbuktu is going to be the laptop bag. I don't expect this thing that would be a laptop bag, but in any case, I'm looking forward to getting it, and I'll let everybody know how well it works. I've been searching for a good day pack for quite some time. I actually have been meaning to replace my pack for a long time. I just couldn't find one that I really liked. But my main pack is also an Osprey, so I like the brand. I trust the brand, and so that's why I got this one.
Cool.
The other thing that I purchased, and I totally blame you for this, although I would have probably come across it, was the Star Trek Adventures books were being sold as a bundle. I mean, they're still being sold, but probably not at the point where this podcast comes out, via Humble Bundle. And this is now like the third Humble Bundle that I've gotten in a row. Like I got the Pro Fantasy Mapping one, I got the Pathfinder 2 one, and now I got this one. But it has all the Star Trek books, like all of the Star Trek RPG books, like the Gamma Quadrant, Beta Quadrant, Alpha Quadrant. Like
I thought of you when I saw it.
So yeah, it's way more content than I probably have time to read. I may have to take a day off just to like do nothing but read, like download all the PDFs, open them up, organize them, and actually just like start virtually paging through them. But we seem like we have momentum gaining within my group to do at least like a one shot or a double shot of Star Trek. There is a like a quick start adventure that we could try out. Cool. So I think that will be useful. Like running the one shot will kind of get us into the mindset of science fiction and help establish what it is we really want to do, right? Cool. So is it cool to do space opera in this mode, or well, actually what we really want to do is cyberpunk, or we want to do something more like Traveler because we want our characters to die in character creation.
I don't think the latest stuff has their characters die in character creation, but the earliest
I don't know. I haven't actually kept up with Traveler, but there is a Traveler random character generator out there that it's for one of the old school versions, and you can just play around with it, and yes, your character will die in character creation, which is kind of hilarious. And then the last thing, which I just found out about yesterday, is my daughter, who is 17, approached me and said, "Hey, Dad, I want you to run a game of D&D for me and my friends."
Very cool.
Okay, cool. So I guess that new D&D starter set with the what was it, the Dragons of Icefire Mountain or something like that? Was it Dragon of Icefire Peak, which has gotten rave reviews, and I believe we talked about it earlier. I'm planning on running this adventure for my son and his friends, and now it looks like I'm going to run at least portion of it with my daughter and her friends, and I'm looking forward to it. My son is 14, as we've discussed previously, and so I've been playing D&D with him on and off for several years at this point, and it's been interesting to watch them mature and become more capable of playing, but I haven't played with 17 and 18-year-olds, at least not since I was 18 years old.
Right.
So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I would be interested to hear like a couple of things. One, it's your daughter, not your son. So what is she interested in compared to what he's interested in? But also like what aspects of the game is more interesting,
Yes.
Like when you and I started playing, most of the game revolved around combat, and it was very rare to find a group that was really into role-playing as well as the combat. Now role-playing seems to be much more front and center, but at the same time, like D&D is still written around combat, not necessarily around the role-playing.
Very much so.
It'll be interesting to see how your daughter and her friends, being 17 and 18, not 14-year-olds, and those extra years, how does that factor into a game? Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it. I'm pretty excited. It's it's one of those things. I've invited her to play D&D over the years, and she hasn't. She's kind of been kind of hot and cold with it, mostly cold. So the idea that she wants to get her friends together and play, could be just a one shot. We'll see what happens. So
do you happen to know?
Let everybody know how it goes.
Do you happen to know what got her interested?
No, actually, I don't. I think I have to have that follow-up conversation with her. I think I don't know. I don't even know that I care to speculate.
Yeah. She has a lot of friends. It's very popular right now. With like Critical Role and a bunch of other, Twitch and YouTube channels doing actual play. But at the same time, I don't know how much that's like me being aware of it, or, it seems to be a lot more popular with people that have never played before. They're enjoying it and are like, let's try and play that now, and I don't know if that's where this is coming from.
Yeah, I think we'll find out. I think I know at least one of my daughter's friends played in like a family campaign with her dad. So there's at least some experience out there. I think it's one of those things. It's kind of a cultural icon at this point. So I think they're certainly aware of it. I know. Obviously, I've been playing it for 20-something years. Jordy
Right.
grew up with me playing this, right? Like one of the first things we had to do was make sure she didn't swallow the dice.
Right.
So, which we talked about previously. But so I'm reasonably sure I don't have to worry about them swallowing the dice. But then again, I remember playing in college. So, and I had friends who did dumb things with dice. So it's summertime, and normally that would mean blockbuster movie after blockbuster movie, and my getting together with one of my great friends from high school, and that would just be our summer tradition. And unfortunately, this summer, because of the pandemic, no theaters and thus no movies. So David and I thought we would take some time and think about what we're watching, or talk about what we're watching via streaming, since we can't actually get out to the theater. So what's in your queue?
My wife has been really interested in the Black Widow movie eventually coming out, but that even was pushed back till I think November because theaters are closed. So I recently watched The Old Guard, which I think you did too.
Yes, I did.
Charlize Theron playing Andy. She and a few others are a group of immortal warriors that are trying to make the world a better place. I likened it like about halfway through the movie. I don't know if you thought of it this way at all or not, but about halfway through the movie, I'm like, this is like the inverse Highlander, where you have a bunch of people who throughout history become immortal. So basically you can be killed, but then you're going to get right back up. And then they come together, but instead of killing each other, so that they're, and in a way of there can be only one, it is, we're going to come together and we're going to all try to make the world a better place, you know, however we can. I really liked it. It was a very cool movie. It definitely seemed set up for a sequel, which I would, or a series, which I would like. You had some notes on this as well, I think.
Yeah, so I think, I agree. It was one of those things I sat down and I really enjoyed Charlize Theron in Mad Max Fury Road, where she's Furiosa. Yep. My friends and I have one friend who saw Fury Road, like, I don't know, 10 times in the theater. He was just completely obsessed with it. And I still really enjoy it. I did not watch it nearly as many times as he did. But still, it's a beautiful movie. The cinematography was fantastic in the theater, and she is just fantastic in this movie. I mean, she completely upstages Mad Max, and I'm in no way upset about that.
Yeah,
I would totally watch a Furiosa spinoff in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think it was Tom Hardy who was playing Mad Max, and
yes,
he
it was.
growled a lot, but didn't
yes,
talk
he did.
a lot. So, yeah, she was really good in that movie, and I really liked her character development in The Old Guard as well.
And so, you know, she was also in Atomic Blonde, which I don't know if you saw.
I have never seen that. I have never seen that.
That is another, like, just sort of kick butt, like, it's hyper violent. It's kind of like it's in the mode of John Wick, right? Kind of like in almost indestructible protagonist, indestructible in so much they still take a tremendous amount of damage and they suffer through it and terrible things happen, but they just keep going because of, you know, indomitable will. And so Atomic Blonde, very good movie. And so I had actually read that she was totally down with doing like a sequel or doing a future Furiosa prequel, but they were talking, I guess I can't remember, the director of Mad Max, which obviously I should know, right? I feel like I need to turn in my geek card. But in any case, he wanted to do it with a younger actor because he wanted the origin story for Furiosa would have happened like 20 years before or something like that.
Got it.
Which would make it difficult for her to play this movie.
Yep. But because she is our age, by the way.
Yes.
So,
and she is just doing fantastic. She's like the Keanu Reeves, the female Keanu Reeves, right?
So I don't know if you heard about this, but she was asked at one point, and she said that she would be totally open to doing an action movie with Keanu Reeves. Yes. Which would be amazing.
Yes. That would be just be totally fantastic. And so I would have to pause and just kind of imagine that movie in my head for a second.
Yeah, Atomic Blonde meets John Wick.
Yes.
You know, or a John Wick movie with her as another main character would be pretty darn cool.
That would be very cool. And in the meantime, we have The Old Guard. I mean, I can't say that it is the best movie that I've ever seen, but it is far better than Netflix deserved. And I should note that it is actually on Netflix.
Yeah.
And so people know where they can actually go and watch it. Did you have any other comments or thoughts on the Old Guard?
No, I would agree with that last part, that like it's not the best movie out there or the best movie I've ever seen, but I would definitely watch it again a couple of times as one of those. What is there anything on? No, there's nothing on. Let's just watch something fun.
Right.
The world building in it I really like, and it's got a Highlander-esque sort of world building to it that if you wanted to, you could totally turn that into a role-playing game.
Oh, in a heartbeat. I had the same exact thought as I was watching this. Is like, this would be all too easy to convert into an RPG and have a heck of a lot of fun with it.
Yep.
Especially since, just kind of with the conceit that all of your characters are going to die, but it's okay, you'll get better.
Right.
Because I think you could have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is it also, in terms of an RPG, there's also a limit in there, in that they are immortal, but not quite. Like, they live a very, very, very long time. They can survive a ton of damage and get back, and like self-resurrect and get back up. But at a certain point, and they don't know why, they don't know when, they just will stop healing. They will, and they will just die. So that might be something pretty cool in terms of an RPG, as well as just to have some sort of, not even maybe a mechanic, maybe not a mechanic, but something in the if you did do a role playing game with it that still keeps that risk, of death on the table, but it's just not one that you always have to worry about.
Yes. So the other thing that I'm watching, and actually this was inspired by my daughter because she had read these graphic novels when she was younger, The Umbrella Academy. And so
I saw season 1.
Oh, cool. What did you think?
I liked it. I had never read the graphic novels. I liked it. I was interested. I didn't know season 2 would come out until a little earlier this week, and I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. So, but I've heard good things.
So the setup here, for those who aren't familiar with it, is kind of like your classic superhero setup, a la the X-Men. You have a number of gifted individuals who appear around the world. There is a father/mentor figure who is perhaps not particularly good at being a dad, who brings them together and forms the Umbrella Academy, which is a superhero team. They grow up and go through all of the angst and challenges and heroics of being a superhero team. And then as adults, like they break up, basically, and they go their separate ways. And in the first season, one of them nearly destroys the world. And in the second season, there's still the kind of this apocalypse looming, but this time around, they've been cast backwards in time, and there's a nuclear war that's going to happen in a number of days in 1963. So that is not a spoiler in any way, because I think it happens in like the first 5 minutes of the first episode.
Got it.
I think I've heard other people say this, and I would agree. It's tighter and a little more focused than season 1. I think season 1 was trying to, it had to do a lot of world building. It had to introduce a lot of different characters. Sometimes it felt like it took a while to kind of come together to the point where they're actually doing a thing. When I first got into season 2, I'm like, oh gosh, they're scattered through, again, this is not a big spoiler, but they're kind of scattered through time in a very limited range, like 1961 to 1963. And it's like, oh geez, really? Are we going to spend another season with them trying to get back together again? Got it. But I'm happy to report that is not the case. Fairly quickly, they start teaming up again and playing with the team dynamics and trying to figure out what the heck it is they're actually supposed to be doing. So it is definitely a very dysfunctional X-Men.
Got it. I mean, some people would argue that the X-Men are dysfunctional already. Like the Wolverine, Cyclops dynamic and things like that. So,
yes,
but having the dysfunction be front and center, at least like in the first season, like that was the core of their interaction. That's not. It's kind of like a C plot on the X-Men.
Yes, the X-Men really are trying to be a team,
right?
And depending on which title you're reading, they're more of a team than not,
right?
But yeah, so I mean, I enjoyed it. I mean, I'm a big superhero fan, so I enjoyed the first season, and I'm really enjoying the second one. I've stayed up too late watching this, so that gives you an indication. When you look up and it's 2:00 in the morning, it's probably time to go to bed and maybe you should stop binging.
Yes.
So the last thing I'm excited about, although it is very weird, is that baseball is back. So I'm a Mets fan. I think the correct way to say that is long-suffering Mets fan. And the Mets are back, and baseball is back, and they are playing in empty stadiums. And apparently, I haven't watched that many games, and I'm watching them on MLB TV, so I'm not necessarily seeing the broadcast stuff that Fox is doing. But apparently, Fox is borrowing a page from like video games and digitally inserting audiences into the stadium.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah. And not on every camera.
I had heard a little bit of like that they were thinking about that. The concept of it is weird to me because like the audience is there to watch the live game, but the people on TV, the people watching TV are there to watch the game, not the audience who's watching the game.
Right. I mean, the audience can have, I mean, depending on the game that you're watching, like in the actual physical world, like an impact, right? Like,
right.
You know,
right.
If it's, you know, bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, you know, you're down to your last strike, and you know the everybody's on their feet and the flags are flying, what have you. There's that, certainly that energy there. But yeah, I don't know that it's actually. I mean, it is definitely the flip side to it is definitely weird watching a baseball game that has absolutely nobody in the stands. And in the Mets games that I watch, they have cardboard cutouts in the stands instead.
Like
so
a lot of them, or like 2 or 3 here and 2 or 3 there.
Fair number. So there's a whole bunch behind home plate.
Okay.
And so I haven't actually read up on this to see if like there's a logic behind this, like if it helps the pitchers,
right?
Like if they're used to seeing people, and like if their pitching style, if they have certain tricks where they kind of need to be able to focus on, you know, the audience off to the side. You know how you
right.
I mean, I can imagine how it might impact your mechanics.
Yeah, you work differently when you're in front of an audience than when you're, you know, isolated. You know, even if it's just the opposing team, you're going to play differently. So, yeah, maybe the cardboard cutouts help with that.
But they are cardboard cutouts, which is weird.
Yeah. They should they should put like some Chewbacca and C-3PO and R2-D2 cardboard cutouts in the stand. I think that would be pretty cool.
That would be fantastic. There were 3 dogs in the one Mets game I watched. The players had cutouts of their dogs.
Nice.
Out in right field, in the seats above right field.
All right.
And one of them got hit by a home run.
Oh, no.
But they took a licking. Like, it just bounced right off. Because they're that hard, you know, like commercial grade printed.
Yes.
Whatchamacallit, poster board type stuff, right? Like, it's not just straight up cardboard that somebody drew a smiley face on and stuck it in the stands. But yeah, it's definitely weird, right? Like, you're used to crowd noises.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a strange time, but I'm a person who really enjoys baseball. So the idea that I can now, once again, for as long as it lasts, be able to go out on my back patio and listen to a game, or sit down downstairs and actually watch a game, is very nice.
So let me ask
a little bit of normalcy.
I used to watch baseball, but I haven't in years. Do you notice a difference in the players and the teams playing between last year and this year, of their energy levels, or how hard or not hard they're playing because there's not an audience?
I mean, I've heard that the games themselves are actually faster. There's less pauses between different components because there's not an audience there to kind of play to, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Or just even that is even also like where the just the sheer sound of the crowd can come into play. Like if you've ever been in a really loud stadium, right? And so I don't know. I've only watched 2 or 3 games, and so I don't know that I have a strong opinion on that yet. I mean, the things that are odd is like because they're still trying to social distance. So, you know, there's a lot of these kind of baseball-y sports traditions, right? Where, you know, everybody, you know, if somebody hits a home run and they all come out and like congratulate them and everybody's like clapping hands and stuff.
Right.
There's a lot less of that, right?
Yep.
Like you've got the managers wearing masks. So there's a lot that's just, somebody described it as the uncanny valley of sports, right? Like it's like baseball, but it's not like baseball.
It's not like the baseball you're used to. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, but, you know, I'll take some baseball over no baseball. course, as long as everyone's being safe. And obviously, Major League Baseball's had some challenges with that. I think the Marlins had an outbreak of COVID-19.
Yep.
So hopefully we'll see how the stadium, how the rest of the season goes. But it's odd when you I think I mentioned this earlier, that I play MLB The Show, which is a Major League Baseball game on the PlayStation 4. Those games feel more real than the games I'm watching on TV, because they've got the crowds and they have the noise and like all this, right?
Actually, I think okay, now that you say that, I think that is what I had heard about. Maybe it was Fox that was doing it. They were digitally inserting the crowds from the game. That's how they got the crowds.
Oh,
is they were taking the game crowds and digitally inserting those into the image. It may not be baseball, it might be a different sport, but that's what I had heard. At least one attempt to add crowds into a broadcast was.
Yeah, I think there was a soccer team that had tried to do the same thing, which is where Fox had gotten it from.
Got it.
But it was also weird because Fox didn't do it on every camera view, right? So you'd have 4 camera views that had the fake audience and one that didn't.
Interesting.
I'm definitely down on the side of no fake audience. I mean, I'm okay with reality. I wish reality were a little better right now, but
yes, I think we all do.
I would rather take no crowd and people just playing baseball than to have like the the weird CGI crowds in the background. I think it's just it's a very strange.
I know that here in Indy, so they had postponed the Indianapolis 500 from Memorial Day to August 23rd this year. They were allowing crowds in, but at like 1/3 to 1/2 capacity. There's been some back and forth, like the IU Health system, the hospitals and other doctors' offices and stuff in the area are trying to get less crowds into the Indy 500 because they're worried about a higher infection rate. But the Indy 500 people are saying, hey, we're working with the towns and the health departments in the towns around the Indy 500, and they say that we're implementing good safety margins, et cetera, et cetera. It's also kind of in my mind of those towns around and those health departments. Is that like the mayor in Jaws?
Yeah, right.
Where it's like, no, that's a big moneymaker for us. So we want people to come in and watch the Indy 500, even if it's reduced. And we're willing to have other people accept the risk.
As you know, amity means friendship. Right. So to bring it back around to a geeky topic, I have one last show I wanted to mention real quick. The Boys is coming back. So did you watch The Boys on Amazon?
I have watched a couple of episodes, but I don't remember why I didn't continue.
It's pretty dark.
It's very dark, and that might have been why. I would be much more interested in watching The Tick live action than a dark show right now.
So the setup for The Boys, as I alluded to, it's fairly dark, is that you have kind of like this Justice League, but and they're all kind of Justice League superpowered, right? Except for the fact that with great power did not come great responsibility, and they're really mostly just terrible people.
Right.
There's a few that are striving to be better. There might be one or two that are striving to be better, and there's like one who's caught in a bad situation. But generally speaking, they're all terrible. And for me, what actually just kept me going was Keith Urban is one of the non-powered individuals who is basically trying to take them down. And he just chews scenery. I mean, he's fantastic in this. Yeah. He's full on. And that's what powered me through. I'm kind of down with you. I don't know if I'm in the mood for a particularly dark superhero right now, but I am in the mood for some Keith Urban. So
yes, he would be the one that would bring me into it again, because I loved him in Dredd, playing Judge Dredd, and I loved him in Star Trek, of course, playing Bones. And then he was, oh my gosh, he's in several other things that are earlier than that. I'm blanking on him right now, but like I would watch any of that again, any of those movies with him again. And I think there's even a couple of bad movies in there that like he just makes it worthwhile to watch.
So yeah, so I mean, it's interesting in so much as it reminds me of Brandon Sanderson's The Reckoners, which is a similar sort of like they're superheroes, but they're all evil.
Got it.
And
Okay.
so you have regular unpowered people trying to take down supers, and that's an interesting flip on that whole dynamic. So that's the other part that attracted me to it. But it is pretty dark, and so if you're not in the mood for evil superheroes, I would not recommend watching.
And I think you mean Carl Urban, because you said
Carl
Keith
Urban. Sorry, Carl Urban.
Keith Urban
Yes.
evidently is also a person of note who is I think a guitarist in a band.
Yes.
I was like,
I feel so bad now. Carl Urban. Yes, Carl Urban.
I didn't realize he'd been doing stuff since 1990. It's like, no, that's the wrong guy.
And that's what happens when you ad lib something without having it down in the show notes.
Yes, it is. Let's see, where was it that there are a couple of them that oh yeah, well, he's in the Two Towers and Return of the King.
Yes.
Chronicles of Riddick was the one I was trying to think of.
I was thinking Chronicles of Riddick.
Yes, he is Vaco. He's the guy who is plotting against the main necromonger. And almost steals the throne, but then Riddick kills him. Riddick kills the main guy, and then he's like, "Well, I got to bow to you now."
Oh wow, huh? Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of him right now. Wow.
Yeah, and there's a couple of. Oh, he was also in Priest, which is not a good movie, but it's worth watching for him. But he plays the antagonist in Priest. Paul Bettany is the main character.
Oh, geez.
In Priest.
That's a movie that sounds like it should be better than it is.
Oh my gosh, it should be so much better than it is. It suffers from bad editing and some bad writing in terms of like stringing. It's a bunch of there are times where it's a bunch of disjointed scenes, some of which go on too long, some of which are way too short. And it's just like it kind of jumps around. I think it probably could have been a much better edited and been a ton better movie. I mean, it's worth watching once, maybe not twice.
Understood. So I think that about wraps it up. I mean, we're always interested in what you guys have to say. And, if you have suggestions on things we should be watching or favorites that you'd like us to know about, feel free to drop us a line. You know where to find us. And we'll be looking forward to your feedback.